was a bad decision. She knows that. She went to court. All the evidence that you have is the
Ron,
same
it's not
evidence.
a bad decision.
I don't know what went on between HBO and Mike Stanfield. Mike Stanfield was the defense attorney.
No, you do know, because that letter was addressed to both you and Christy, telling you that they concluded a USB drive to give to Mike Stanfield. It is in the letter I have from HBO. It's your letter to you and Christy.
So what's the point? It's evidence. Just knowing the fact that I seen my daughter walk for the first time in that courtroom. I did. When she was younger, after they started moving away towards New Orleans and everything, I didn't see her at all for many years.
Why did you never go for visitation, Rod? No.
That was her way.
She didn't have to go home with her, Rod. Why wouldn't she have just, why didn't she call the police that day? They would have come out and verified her ID.
I don't know. I can't answer that. That's a good question.
Exactly. You can't answer that. That's the problem.
I understand what y'all are saying. I understand it looks bad.
It is bad. It does not look bad. It is bad. People don't like it.
I only get upset when people are saying things that are untrue, in my opinion, that I know for sure is not true. Just like somebody said a while ago, Gypsy has a parole hearing. She doesn't. Okay? So, look.
And
always the time where you could be that
you
parent.
can do for Gypsy if you loved your family is take them out of the spotlight. It looks like you don't care about. Christy doesn't care about Gypsy. Look what she did to her between the marriage and that's what we're seeing, and then we like you even less, and then we're going to continue talking, and then you're all getting upset.
No control of the show happening or not happening. Well, I know what it's like to be in love with somebody else. I know what it's like to be in a marriage that you just, it's not there, okay? So it's not right. I agree. I made a mistake getting married to her mom. She made a mistake getting married to Ryan. That's the story. People want to see it. Lifetime want to pay money for it.
Thank you. So you just proved my point. Lifetime wants to pay money for it. End of discussion. I got nothing else to say.
Hi friends, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Thursday, August 8th, 2024, and I hope everyone's having a wonderful day. Yesterday I was not over here. I was actually over hanging out on TikTok. I'm literally just learning how to TikTok. I don't even know if that's a verb, but I'm learning how to navigate that platform and grow that audience. So if you haven't followed me on TikTok, I am over there on Without a Crystal Ball. And yesterday I was doing some lives, and in this very beginning clip, this is Ivy Rose Knows, and she is a content creator. She is a RN, she's a nurse, and her channel is about a lot of different things. Lately, she's been covering what's been going on with Gypsy Rose, and the unique aspect of her panel is that she's a nurse, and then she has mods that are nurses, and she has people that come on that are in the healthcare field that can talk about the case. And so she and her panel had an opportunity to talk about the case a couple nights ago, and then Rod Blanchard showed up out of the blue, and he wanted to talk. He wanted to respond to the questions. He wanted to defend Gypsy Blanchard. And one of the biggest issues that's been happening online when it comes to Gypsy is not that she's released, and it's not that she's out, it's that the family is profiting off of what happened and what Gypsy did to her mother. And the family is painting a narrative of her mother that isn't actually wholly true. We're relying on the account of one child who grew up with her named Gypsy Rose Blanchard, who has admitted to being a pathological liar with no conscience.
My life, yes. She taught me how to be a good liar, a very good liar without any conscience. And I'm changing that. I'm trying to be a good person now. I don't want to be like my mother, and I'm nothing like her.
Pile of snow. You ready? All right.
hard to answer a lot.
Rod was apparently sent online to defend his daughter by his wife, Christy. While Rod was on this live, he basically admitted that he didn't see Gypsy for years, that he never went to a single doctor's appointment ever for Gypsy, never once. This is a man that has a daughter that is sick, and he takes zero interest in it, zero. Instead, he claimed that he was out working, he had things he needed to do, and that's what happened. I did a little bit of digging because Rod's story and his story about his relationship with Gypsy never really made a lot of sense to me. It always felt like Christy was responding and doing all of this because people were accusing her and Rod of basically neglecting Gypsy. Like, how could you allow this to happen? And so they had to put out this narrative that Rod didn't do these things, right? Like Rod didn't abandon her. And I mean, he admits that he didn't see her for years, and I wouldn't call that the father of the year. And he always makes this reference like, well, she moved out to up to New Orleans. The dude lives like less than an hour from New Orleans. It's not that hard to see your daughter if you have a daughter that's in Louisiana, to travel an hour. It's just an excuse that he made so he didn't have to see his daughter and be involved in her life. I mean, that's just my opinion. Someone yesterday was telling me about these text messages that were exchanged between Dee Dee and Christy. These text messages were shared by the Good Wives Network, but Christy has never denied that these text messages are not real. She's actually confirmed they are real. And the text messages show a very different side of Dee Dee that isn't malicious, isn't cruel. In fact, it's very giving and kind and offering and being very generous. But in 2011, after she had met Dan and she was out on social media, she posted something really nasty to her dad because her dad had no relationship with her. He was too busy working. And her mom sent this long text message to Christy about this post, and I don't know what the actual post was, but she blamed it on her friend Aaliyah for writing it, which Aaliyah did not write, right? And she was posting raunchy pictures on this account as well. And she said, "We love y'all too, and when I saw the filth, I deleted that disgusting Facebook and took Gypsy's computer away. I fussed for 2 days straight. My doctor had to increase my heart meds. I did not read everything, but what I did made me sick. Please explain to my little Mia that whatever was written was not her sister, but a mean person named Aaliyah." So they were blaming it on Aaliyah, but it was really Gypsy. She said, "Gypsy told me Aaliyah helped her like her nurse helps her. She has trouble reading and writing and can't see well, so she needs help. I called that Slayton's mom and her to come over, and Aaliyah admitted everything." And so she blames Aaliyah for messages or a post that Gypsy made, and it was being very critical of Rod, right? And Christy responded very interestingly, and I'm just going to read you part of it. But she said, "We all love one another. We have each other's back if needed. We may be states away, but we're always thinking of y'all. And if y'all ever need us, we would get there as soon as we could. I'm sure all of this was not good for your heart. I don't want you to feel that by any way we thought it was her. I can say for myself, I thought there was no way in hell that it was her. And I know Rod told you I thought something was fishy going on. I just hope that girl knows how much trouble she can get into by law. She is lucky that you are not pressing any charges because this is a serious felony charge." But they had to explain to the kids about what happened. And he said Rod had to also explain that he was not innocent. He did make bad choices in his life by drinking and doing drugs at that point in time. And Rod really was not mad at Gyps. None of us were. We were just in awe that she felt that way. But knowing all her history with her illnesses, that it was just human nature to lash out, and Rod and I understood. But as for Mia and Dylan, they were a bit confused. So Gypsy's mom and Dee Dee and Christy had a relationship for years, and Dee Dee and Christy's relationship was not tenuous or fresh or stressed, and Dee Dee never was trying to keep Gypsy from her dad. In fact, the messages show quite the opposite. So Rod is defending his daughter, and he's stating that what she did was a bad decision, right? Almost trying to equate it to the fact that when he was younger and he was a 17-year-old father He got a couple girls pregnant at the same time. He was out drinking, he was doing drugs, and he wasn't taking care of his kids. But he never grew up out of that because clearly he never made the conscious effort to be a part of her life. And now he is, but it's all about money. Like all of this is about money. And I can tell you that they're filming right now for the next season. And I can tell you that Gypsy is in pretty serious trouble. And I can also tell you some information from sources that are connected to the family, to the neighborhood. Yeah, neighbors are dropping information. So I've been able to talk to a bunch of people. A lot of people are starting to come out of the woodwork because frankly, those people like me that maintained a friendly relationship with the family are fed up with their behavior, the profiting, their lies, and it's all hit the fan all at once. And like me, other people are starting to share their experiences, and what's happening at the Blanchard house right now is a mess. So there was a report last week that police were at their house. And on this live stream, Rod said that he had to come out and speak out against the lies because he said that he needed to share that there wasn't police at his house and he didn't leave his house, and then that there wasn't a parole hearing. And he seemed really bothered by those three things, which is interesting because his neighbor contacted me yesterday, and they don't live on the exact same street, so don't go finding your neighbors who are leaking this. But basically they said that on July 23rd, there was a big fight at the house, huge fight. Cops were called. One of the neighbors down the street heard Christy yelling, and the police showed up. At that time, Rod did leave the house. I don't know where Gypsy was, but Rod left the house to let things cool down, and he went and stayed at his son's house. And this has been going on numerous times. The neighbor said cops go to their house a lot, allegedly. They go there because there's a lot of fighting. Christy and Rod fight, Christy and Gypsy fighting. They said even before Gypsy moved in, there was always a lot of fighting between Christy and Rod. It's usually, according to this neighbor, revolving around alcohol. And one of them is drunk and they drink when he's off work for his month and things get heated. But on the 23rd, things escalated and police were called because they were concerned about the welfare in the home, of the people in the home. The neighbor also said she hears Christy screaming and yelling at Gypsy constantly, hears Rod screaming, hears Gypsy screaming. There's a lot of screaming happening, a lot of unrest, and Rod can deny that it happened, and he can deny that they're fighting, and he can deny all of it, and he can say we're not perfect. But at the end of the day, it's happening. Neighbors are seeing it. Their family members are talking about it. Extended family members are hearing about it. Like, friends are talking about it. It's at a point right now where things are so toxic. And on top of that, they're filming, okay? So they're filming a show, for Gypsy's pregnancy, which, by the way, many in the family don't believe is real. I know this will come as a big surprise to some of you that a girl that was in that video I showed you earlier, faking not being able to move her legs and faking being paralyzed, would fake a pregnancy, but this is something Gypsy's done so many times. She faked a pregnancy with Dan, the first boyfriend, faked a pregnancy with Nick twice, faked a pregnancy in April with Ryan, and now this new pregnancy the family doesn't think is real. And they're confident that Gypsy will have a miscarriage, like a fake miscarriage soon, because she can't keep going on with the scam. Now that's their feelings. I know she went online and put a Doppler on her stomach. I know she's shared a photo of her ultrasound, but the ultrasound photos that people have seen, they claim that it doesn't have her name on it. And she's just, a lot of the things that she's been saying about the pregnancy, the timeline of the pregnancy, none of it adds up. So I guess whether or not she's pregnant is just one of the many issues that they're dealing with, because Gypsy is trying to prove them wrong that she is pregnant. So that's why she keeps posting about her pregnancy. And this pregnancy is supposed to be a part of the show for the next season. Well, in the middle of all of that, Gypsy is in big trouble with her parole officer. Now, Rod said she didn't have a parole hearing, and absolutely no one here ever mentioned that she had a parole hearing. But what I can say is that Gypsy is in trouble with her parole. And I shared with you a couple days ago that she's had a number of violations. But I spoke to someone today that said that she's basically on house arrest right now. And if you've noticed, she's always posting from her parents' house now. And that is because my source says she can't go to Ken's anymore. She can't stay at Ken's anymore because she was violating her probation by staying too many nights in a row with him. She didn't have approval to stay with him that many nights. He has those tickets and unresolved stuff going on with the court. And even if it's a minor thing to the parole officer, it's too much for them to be comfortable. And he's not responsible for her on parole. And so she can't be at his house all the time. So she literally at this point, according to my source, can't leave. She can go and do stuff like grocery shopping apparently and post photographs with fruit, but she can't leave the house. And part of this is because the parole group is actually investigating her the parole officer is investigating her for those phone calls and that communication that she was having with those inmates. So she had to confess this to Rod and to Christy and tell them that she did this. And as you heard on that leaked live video between her and Bree, where she was saying you should just lie to the parole board, they should have to get subpoenas and look at your text messages. Well, they're investigating that. They're investigating that. And when she confessed this to Rod and to Christy, I guess then another huge fight broke out. And like, not necessarily like a huge fight, but they were upset because she did this. And in order to try to get out of it, she tried to blame Ryan and say, well, it's Ryan that was actually communicating with these inmates, not me. Because I remember I told you she was using Ryan's Securus account. Well, now she says, okay, it's not Ryan's fault. Then the next one was, I was just trying to help these people. But there was something happening in these communications that was significant enough for them to need to investigate her, place her on more restrictions. She can't go to Ken's. She's basically on house arrest while she's under investigation and while they figure out what happened and who she talked to and what all of this was. But they're investigating apparently 4 separate violations. So another one of these restrictions, we think, is that she can't go live on her social media because obviously she was live with Bree trying to get out of it, and Bree's telling her to lie to her parole officer, okay? So Gypsy hasn't been live since July 30th, and she has only posted videos on her TikTok where she's not really talking. She posted a video of her with a book, and then she did one yesterday where she was trying to share that she was using a Doppler and she got the baby's heartbeat. But you can take that with a grain of salt. Those Dopplers are notoriously unreliable, and it's hard to know if she actually was getting a reading of a baby or just herself or one of her organs, or she was putting it on something else because we didn't see where she was placing it. But all of that, again, is because her family doesn't believe she's pregnant, I guess. So with that said, she's not going live and she's not posting a lot of stuff to talk. Instead, she's just trying to deflect and say she's pregnant. So in the middle of this, right? So she has these violations. She's under investigation. They're very scared right now. At least I was told that Gypsy's scared that she's going to go back to prison, that she's potentially done. Like, they're going to figure it out and she's going to go back. And they're claiming that the next thing that might happen is that because she's on house arrest, because she's scared, she's going to fake a miscarriage. And she's really going to say she had a miscarriage because they don't think she's pregnant. Well, with the fact that her social media is now restricted and the fact that she's dealing with her divorce and Ryan wants half of her assets and half of all the contract money, and the fact that she hired this PR company and her lawyer to be her manager, and she's going to spend $12,500 a month. The family doesn't have the money to cover this. They're not bringing in enough money to cover the fees, to cover all of the mess she's made. So they tried to sue Fancy and wasted a bunch of money. She's going through a divorce and that costs money. And then the assets are all between her and Ryan. And she's dealing with these ongoing parole issues. She hires a PR company. Like, the fees, all of these costs are they're just building up so and so much. And so the blowout fights, a lot of them are not only about her violating her parole, but it's also that she's not spending money wisely and they don't have the money to cover this. And some of these fights between her and Christy have been about the money because they're they're practically bankrupt is what I was told, allegedly. And so the money isn't rolling in. She can't go live to get the money to roll in, right? She can't go live to get the money rolling in. And so she's fighting with Christy about the money. She's fighting with her dad about the money. And she's also fighting with her parents because she's entitled and lazy and she doesn't get out of bed ever. She doesn't help around the house. She's not trying to go out and get a job other than film. She's not trying to do anything other than be on social media and obsess about what people say about her and try to get rid of the lies and harass people and hurt people and, try to win the narrative by making her dad go live to defend her. And so that's creating fights because she's lazy, entitled, and expects everyone to just bend over for her and do whatever she wants. So on top of all of this, the violations, the money, all of it, things are getting even worse because not only could she go back to prison, but it sounds like, at least by two separate people I've talked to, that Gypsy's sister, one of her siblings, is planning to sue Gypsy or is in the discussion with lawyers to sue her over the profiting and the defamation of the family in her books, on the show, and really just the profiting off the harms they caused to Dee Dee. I explained this to you last week that any one of Dee Dee's siblings who's an heir to her or her father can sue her because there's a law in Louisiana that makes it illegal to profit off the notoriety of a crime. But there's also details here that are interesting because Gypsy didn't decide to just speak about herself and make accusations that affected her. She decided to make accusations against her grandfather that Dee Dee never made. So she claims that not only did her grandfather do this to her, essayed her, but also essayed her mom. And I've spoken to people that knew Dee Dee, and absolutely no one in Dee Dee's life said Dee Dee ever made that claim against her father, ever. And while I understand that she wrote about it in her book and they asked her grandfather about it, and the grandfather accused Gypsy of trying to grab him, and people assumed that that meant that he did that to her, I don't know. Gypsy lies about everything. But it's one thing to lie about yourself. It's another thing to lie about something that happened to someone else, and that person never said that. And then make that lie about that person and that person's dad did that to them. On top of that, she's the person that caused the unaliving of her mother. She's the person that contributed to the unaliving of her mother. And so this whole smear campaign she's been doing against her mother since her mother's death is completely changing the narrative of who Dee Dee was, regardless of what the truth was. I don't think anyone disagrees that teaching your child to become involved in fraud is okay. I don't think it's okay for a parent to teach their child how to shoplift or to teach their child to just sit in this chair and we'll get you a free trip or whatever, because you're teaching your child to lie and to deceive. So I don't think most people will say that's great parenting. Friends of Dee Dee will say that this is just what Dee Dee did because she was a single mom and she needed to take care of her daughter and she needed to find a way to make ends meet, so she turned to the con to make the money. So I don't think people are saying that it's right that she did the con at all and made Gypsy do the act. There's disputes about whether or not she had Munchausen's, and medical records don't seem to match what Gypsy has said that her mom did to her, because the medical records actually say the opposite of what Gypsy said, because she does have a microdeletion and she did have chronic ear infections. She has an eye condition. She had hypoventilation that needed a CPAP. She also had hypersalivation despite her saying she didn't. She did. It's in the medical records, and no amount of Oragel could have made that a lie. So her claim is that she had to do this to her mom because her mom was abusing her. And that's what they stand on. Rod and Christy stand on, she had no other option. But there is other options. And there's also other options where you can accept responsibility for what you did without blaming the victim. You can accept responsibility for unaliving her without not only blaming the victim, but also blaming your co-defendant that you manipulated for 2 years to do this for you as being the one that was the malignant narcissist that was controlling you, and he's the one that had evil thoughts, when she actually tried to unalive her mom 2 years before she ever met Nicholas Godejohn. And she also tried to unalive her a second time before Nick helped her. So needless to say, her family, her mom's family, is not happy with her. And I talked to a source that said that she's going to get sued by one of them. I don't know who, I don't know which sister it's going to be, I don't know where it's going to be filed, but the discussion is with lawyers. I don't know if the lawsuit's been filed. I can't find a lawsuit where they live in Lafourche County, or Lafourche Parish, so I don't know if it's there. Her sisters live in various areas of Louisiana, and they can really file it wherever they live. But they would need to probably file it where Gypsy lives currently. And they could also file it federally because of it's on a show that's on a national television. They can also file it against the book publisher. They can file it against the television network for airing all of this. They can file it for any number of people. And frankly, if anyone deserves to have this money, it's the victim's family. It's not Gypsy. And if anyone deserves to try to help clear Dee Dee's name, it's her siblings that love her. And Dee Dee was not without fault. None of us are. But none of us, even with the fault that we have, deserve what happened to Dee Dee. And the crime scene photos prove that Dee Dee did not deserve what happened to her. I mean, one of Dee Dee's friends contacted me yesterday and said that Dee Dee her health was terrible before she died. Like barely walking, basically like shuffling. She had gout. She was dealing with complications with her diabetes. She was having kidney stones, and a heart condition that she had had since childhood was becoming more and more problematic. And she was sick a lot, bedbound. They rarely went out. Almost everything was sent to them via delivery because Dee Dee couldn't go anywhere anymore. And the con was actually becoming too much for Dee Dee that she actually wanted to stop the con. She was done because she wasn't doing well medically, and Gypsy was getting older, and there's only so much you can do with this to get the free stuff, and she can't make Gypsy stay young forever. So I think with Dee Dee wanting to stop the con and Gypsy being a part of it as an adult, she was a part of it from the time she was 18 till she was 23, regardless if she was groomed or not, that would expose Gypsy to criminal liability. And by the way, there are still fraud charges that could be charged against Gypsy federally for all of the fraud for all of the charities that they defrauded. So it's not just her sister that could sue her, but she could get sued really by any of these organizations. Or she could get charged federally for wire fraud, mail fraud, RICO. I don't know. Gypsy's just not out of the woods. And this was just like, if she wanted to be not known and not famous, the best thing she could have done would just have been fading off into obscurity. And then she wouldn't have had this issue. No one would hate her as much as they do. She wouldn't be having mounting legal problems and dealing with all of this crap. But she had to continue the con even after getting out of prison. She can't stop the act. It's all she wants. All she wants to do is defraud people and grift and malinger for financial gain. And it's wrong. So she's facing a potential lawsuit from Dee Dee's sister. She's dealing with a divorce. She's spending tons of money on PR. She can't be on her social media right now. She's basically on house arrest, and she's under investigation for what she was doing with these inmates. And there is a very, very significant concern and very realistic consequence that she will end up incarcerated again. So that's my update on this today. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Let me know if you have something you'd like to say. If you're someone that has also been hurt by them, make sure you can feel free to reach out to me on TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, or at tips@withoutacrystalball.com. Let me know. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Bye, everyone.